Breaking news into Rock Feed, a developing situation unfolding involving legendary Motley Crue guitarist Mick Mars. You'll recall last year a statement was released announcing Mick's retirement from touring as a result of his ongoing health issues. And at the time, former Motley Crue vocalist John Corabi expressed doubts on his decision to retire. He said that he hadn't been able to speak directly to him and he would believe it when he heard directly from him. And he even speculated at the time that Mick might be being quiet and keeping his cards held close to his chest because he might have some plans on filing a lawsuit. That prediction, in fact, became true, with reports stating that Mick has just filed a lawsuit against Motley Crue. There are some very interesting claims made in this lawsuit about a number of things, including how Motley Crue performs. There's a lot to get to. Stick around. If you're new to Rock Feed, be sure to subscribe with notifications on for the latest rock news, and so you don't miss future updates about this story. Now first, around the time of this announcement, John Corabi made an appearance on the Life in the Stocks podcast, and he discussed this announcement. He said he was very skeptical of this decision, and he actually spoke to Mick Mars' wife because she's from Switzerland. He had recently visited. He was sending her pictures. He asked how Mick was doing, didn't get a response. And he said that he thought that there may be a lawsuit in the works. He thought it was odd that Mick didn't offer any sort of a response. This is what he said. He said that since that announcement came out, I've reached out to Mick and his wife a few times, and Mick hasn't responded at all. And then I sent his wife, she's from Switzerland. So when I was there last week, I sent some photos of the Alps. I was in the Alps, and I wrote to her and I said, hey, I'm in your motherland. And she wrote back. And then I came back and I was like, hey, man, how's Mick? And she goes, he's fine. And I said, hey, what's going on? Crickets. So that's kind of unusual behavior for Mick and his wife. They would normally just be like, yeah, dude, everything's cool. He then goes on to say, I don't know if he's embarrassed or maybe, who knows, maybe he's angry and maybe he's being told not to say anything to anybody. Maybe there's going to be a lawsuit. I don't know, but I just know how these guys operate. And I would not be surprised if they didn't say, Mick, look, you're in pain. We've got John 5. We're going to bring him in, maybe throw him a bone. Like every time they tour, throw him some money, but we're going to move forward with this guy. It wouldn't surprise me. Now, this is all a theory. I know about as much as you do, but personally, I don't believe a word of that statement at all. And now to the big picture, Mick Mars has in fact filed a lawsuit against Motley Crue, and a lot of what he's saying here lines up. Mick Mars is unhappy about the way the retirement situation went down. He's unhappy with the way his compensation is working with the band, and he feels as though he was gaslit in this situation. This according to reporting from TMZ. According to documents obtained by TMZ in a lawsuit filed by Mick Mars, it says the band cut his percentage of profits from 25% to 5% after he announced he was stepping back from touring. Furthermore, he claims the band's lawyers made him feel like he should be grateful for even the small cut because they didn't feel they owed him anything at all. Mick claims there was a full band meeting and they decided to unilaterally remove him from Motley Crue. It also says Mick repeatedly accused bassist Nikki Sixx of gaslighting him about his guitar skills diminishing. Mick says that's rich coming from Nikki Sixx because he claims Nikki didn't play a single note of bass on bass during a recent tour, and instead Nikki's parts were pre-recorded. Mick wants Motley Crue to hand over all financial records so he can see if he's getting screwed out of the amount that he feels he deserves. Now, this paperwork was filed on Thursday. Mick Mars reportedly has a 25% ownership stake in the band, and he's saying that his percentage has been reduced down to 5% with his decision to retire from touring. You'll recall the statement at the time said that Mick Mars, in fact, would continue to be a member of Motley Crue, but John 5 would be a touring member. A report from Variety says the paperwork was filed in Los Angeles County Superior Court Thursday, filed through Mars' attorney, Edwin McPherson, and says the band has deliberately withheld information about the various Motley Crue businesses that he has a 25% ownership share in. Mars says the band has demanded he sign a severance agreement that would divest him of those and other future interests in return for a 5% stake in the group's 2023 tour, which is going on without him. Later, it says, the filing further alleges that the group, particularly Nikki Sixx, a leader of the band in business matters, had a pattern of belittling him for years, telling him he had cognitive issues and insulting him about alleged poor playing on tour, including the stadium outing he completed with the band in 2022. In return, Mick alleges the other members of the group engaged in partial or complete miming on that tour, saying that he was the only one performing completely live from top to bottom each show. The lawsuit also says Mars claims he can still execute his parts perfectly and is ready and able to participate in anything that does not subject him to the rigors of the road. He intended to stay in the band for recordings, one-off shows, and possible residencies, as well as maintain his financial interests, giving up only the touring aspect of the job. John 5 has replaced him for the group's current tour. The lawsuit says, how did Mars' brothers of 41 years respond to Mars' tragic announcement about quitting the road? They noticed an emergency shareholders meeting for the band's main corporate entity in order to throw Mars out of the band, to fire him as director of the corporation, to fire him as an officer of the corporation, and to take away his shares of the corporation. When he did not go away quietly, they purported to fire him from 6 additional band corporations and LLCs. It says 6 continuously gaslit Mars by telling him he had some sort of cognitive dysfunction and that his guitar playing was subpar, claiming that Mars forgot chords and sometimes started playing the wrong songs. Now, this lawsuit goes on to claim that Nikki Sixx, in fact, was using pre-recorded bass during the tour, which made those claims about Mick's playing even more offensive to him. It says, astonishingly, Sixx made these claims about Mars playing while he did not play a single note on bass during the entire US tour. Ironically, 100% of Sixx's bass parts were nothing but recordings. Sixx is seen fist pumping in the air with his strumming hand while the bass part was playing. In fact, a significant portion of Neil's vocals were also pre-recorded. Even some of Tommy Lee's drum parts were recordings. Some of the fans noticed that Lee was walking towards his drum set as they heard his drum part began. Mars at times on the tour did play the wrong chords, but not due to any cognitive dysfunction. He was playing live and his in-ear monitors were constantly malfunctioning, causing Mars to be unable to hear his own instrument. The fact is that Mars is rarely mocked or criticized online. He is a quiet member of the group who shows up to play and puts his heart and soul into each performance. Conversely, other band members are often criticized online, particularly Neil, who is routinely torn to shreds for, among other things, not remembering the songs. One of the key takeaways from this lawsuit is that Mick Mars at the time said he would remain a member. That was the statement. It said he was still a member of Motley Crue. John 5 is touring with the band, but he says behind the scenes, things were very differently. His percentage of the cut of ownership of the band was reduced. They wanted to get him into a severance package to cut him out of the band. That's what they're alleging. So we're getting mixed messages here. On one hand, it's being stated that he's still a member of the band and he's still going to be a member. He's just not going to tour with us. And we've got a touring member here, but he's alleging that that is far from the case behind the scenes. It sounds like they weren't getting along. He's saying that Nikki Sixx was criticizing him about his cognitive abilities and his ability to perform and gaslighting him. So this is a developing situation. There's going to be a lot that's come of this. Motley Crue has not yet responded to this. I expect they will have some sort of response. It's important to hear their side of things as well. And look, this is just another chapter in Motley Crue's history. The band, if you go back through their history, multiple members of the band have been at odds with one another at one point in time in the history. And again, John Corabi, he was correct about this. And it is sad to see the situation unfolding. Mick Mars is a highly esteemed, well-regarded musician. He's one of the all-time greats. And we'll see how this plays out. And also Motley Crue, across the board, they are some of the all-time greats, a legendary band. And again, they deserve a chance to respond to this as well. And we'll see what they have to say on this situation. And just we'll let you know as this bizarre situation unfolds. An announcement of a musician retiring from touring who's now saying he's being squeezed out of ownership. A lot to get to here. Be sure to subscribe to Rockfeed if you haven't yet for future updates on this story. And check out the recommended video up on your screen.